Harvard Medical School is not one of the easiest medical schools to get into. Indeed, it remains one of the most competitive medical schools in North America. All areas of your application need to stand out, and this includes your personal statement. If you even want to be considered as an applicant, your essays must be next level. So in today's video, I'm going to go over 3 Harvard Medical School personal statement examples so you can use them as a reference when creating your very own successful personal statement. A quick intro before we begin. Hi, I'm Nadine Evans, an admissions associate at BeMo Academic Consulting. Make sure you subscribe on whatever social media channel you're watching this from now so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. If you'd like us to help you get into medical school, click on the link either above or below this video to schedule your free initial consultation. As a quick tip, if you'd like, feel free to use the time codes in the description of this video to navigate to specific sections of the video that you're interested in. Harvard Medical School utilizes the AMCAS application system, meaning that your personal statement should adhere to the requirements of the AMCAS personal statement. This means that your essay should be no more than 5,300 characters, including spaces, and should speak to your motivations to pursuing a career in medicine, such as why do you want to be a doctor? Remember, you'll also have the AMCAS work and activities section to give details about your work, your volunteering, or your research experience, and the AMCAS most meaningful experiences to expand on some significant moments in your life, work, and education. The personal statement should be a narrative engagement that highlights your key qualities and core competencies as they align with the requirements of medical professionals. So let's get straight into the first Harvard Medical School personal statement example. It was always expected that I would become a doctor. Both of my parents are doctors, my aunt and uncle are doctors, and my older brother is completing medical school. Everyone assumed I would follow a similar path. However, for a while, I didn't see myself following this path of my own volition. It felt like something imposed, rather than something I actually desired. I maintained solid grades in my pre-med courses, but found myself really coming alive in my electives, particularly creative writing and poetry. During my high school years and first 2 years of undergrad, I found the sciences cold and detached, far from the imaginative world of creative thinking I got to explore in the breadth requirements. So I decided to spend my initial undergraduate years ticking the necessary boxes and getting solid marks in my required science courses, but my heart was pulled more and more towards the humanities. At the end of my second year, I decided to carry my pre-med major while also declaring a minor in creative writing. It wasn't until that summer, between my second and third years, that I realized these worlds of thought are not as far removed as I'd initially, and admittedly naively, assumed. Growing up in California, the opportunity to learn Spanish was widely available. Being particularly moved by the poetry of Pablo Neruda, I actively pursued Spanish lessons so that I could read his moving words in their native language. Reading his works in Spanish and independently learning about his life gave his work a renewed richness and depth. I spent many office hours with my poetry professor, Dr. Wilma Salvador, soaking up her knowledge of Neruda and other such artists in 1940 to 80s South America, learning about the intersections of post-colonial thought, the politics of the first to third world divide, and the ways in which artists use their craft to support and foster movements of resistance in the interest of social justice. As such, when the opportunity to participate in a 2-month medical mission in rural Chile arose, I eagerly applied. To say this mission trip was life-changing would be an understatement. Here, we worked with a mobile clinic, providing care to the most impoverished Chilean communities. Doctors spent much of that time providing inoculations to children and treatment for diseases we rarely encountered in North America. There was some resistance to our offers of help, as many in the region were suspicious of aid coming from the United States, in part due to the complex history of relations between these nations. As I am near fluent in Spanish, I was able to transcend the language barrier. This helped me build rapport with some locals, but it wasn't always enough to help break down those walls and encounter one another as humans working together toward a common goal: wellness. Toward the end of my second week in Chile, I met with Maria and her daughter Mariposa. Both were wary of our care. Maria was rather aloof, and Mariposa was terrified of the needle they were going to use to give her a vaccination. Upon learning Mariposa's name, which means butterfly in Spanish, I muttered a few lines from Pablo Neruda's poem, Mariposa de Otoño, Autumn Butterfly. Immediately, Maria's face lit up. She knew the poem and confessed that it was the inspiration for naming Mariposa. Seeing her mother's relief, Mariposa, too, began to relax and open up to me. In that moment, it was as if a light shone down, illuminating the merging of paths I'd thought completely disparate. My passion for words, languages, the beauty and complexity of human communication opened a unique moment between myself and those in my care. These worlds are not separate. When brought together meaningfully and intentionally, they complement one another. I returned to my third year of undergrad with a renewed sense of self and purpose. At last, the pieces of my puzzle felt like they fit together. I began taking my pre-med work more seriously, spending time talking with my professors, both in the sciences and humanities, about my interests and the connections I saw between these two worlds of thought. No longer was one a barrier to overcome to get to the other. Rather, they were mutually inclusive and beneficial. At this time, I really began understanding the meaning of patient-physician relationships and the way in which broader humanistic knowledge can facilitate such relationships. Creating a stronger bond with patients leads to greater patient trust and honesty, which in turn leads to better patient outcomes. My interest in artistic expression could be a bridge between my world and that of my patients. With my third-year studies in global health and social justice issues, I became more knowledgeable about discrepancies and inequities in healthcare systems. By following the path of medicine, complemented by my other studies, I'm developing the tools necessary to advocate for and support patients, both within and beyond my future practice as a physician. I now understand that a doctor heals bodies, but also nurtures the humanity of each patient. Maria and Mariposa helped me see this profession in a way that has left me inspired, with a sense of mission and vocation, which I hope to see through by completing my MD as a passionate and driven student of both the medical and the human conditions. Harvard Medical School personal statement example number 2. At the tender age of 9, I thought the arrival of a baby sister would be a joyous occasion. It never occurred to me that it could be one of the most terrifying ordeals I'd ever experienced. I recall the preparations we'd made in our home for Jenna, the anticipation and excitement each time I felt her move in our mother's womb. 3 months prior to her expected arrival, however, Jenna was born prematurely. She was tiny, under 2 pounds, and spent the first 10 weeks of her life in the NICU. I recall the brief moments I was able to hold her, just a tiny, fragile bundle. Throughout this trial, I was also able to see the dedication and tenacity of the doctors who worked tirelessly to save her life. Watching a medical team devote themselves to her care, tending also to my mother, father, and myself, helping us steal as many precious moments as we could with her, filled me with hope and determination. As she grew stronger, they celebrated with us, every gained pound as much a cause for joy for them as it was for us. They were not merely her doctors, they were part of our family for that time. Seeing all they did for Jenna and the relationship they built with all of us helped me realize my own calling in life. The day she came home was the day I decided that I wanted to become a doctor. As inspirational as this early motivator was, it was later that I learned the real work and challenges I'd need to overcome in pursuing this profession. While no one in my immediate family is a physician, my uncle, a cardiologist, has been keen on helping me achieve my goals. His guidance led me to volunteer work and shadowing experiences, even in my grade school years. In grade 7, I thought I may want to go into neurosurgery. He used his connections to help me shadow a renowned surgeon. Though I was only 12, Dr. Tankian treated me as if I were a serious med school applicant. I followed him through a full day of surgeries, standing by his side as he removed a ruptured disc in a patient's back and installed an artificial bone in the neck of a patient with a degenerative condition. Being in the operating theater was exhilarating, but also terrifying. At one point in the disc removal surgery, I had to step out of the room to catch my breath, as the smell was something I hadn't anticipated and it made me woozy. A nurse brought me tea and I momentarily thought about leaving. However, I knew I was getting an incredible opportunity. Despite this small setback, I firmed my resolve and returned to watch the rest of the surgery and the one that followed, and I made it through the rest of the day without having to step away again. Though I persevered, the temptation to leave had been strong, but I know now that I can face such challenges head-on and set aside my own discomfort for the sake of learning. After our day together, Dr. Tankian helped me compile research on the brain and its functions, which I assembled into an unassigned research project that I voluntarily presented to my science class. Though it was not a graded assignment, it remains one of my proudest moments of my childhood. Since 2014, I have volunteered in the NICU at Good Samaritan Hospital, the same NICU that cared for my baby sister. Today, Jenna is strong as ever, and the opportunity to help other families has been a motivator for my volunteer work. During my initial years, I operated as general support for nurses and families. I grabbed lunch or coffee or whatever was needed for the nurses on shift and for the families whose glazed expressions matched those of myself and my parents as we held on for my little sister. I knew a blanket or even a listening ear and warm smile can make a difference in the day-to-day lives of families in such moments of struggle. I frequently stayed well beyond my scheduled shift, as providing such comforts isn't something that can simply be abandoned when the clock strikes a certain hour. Over time, my commitment was noted. I rose to the position of lead volunteer and then volunteer coordinator. Today, I still get to provide one-on-one support to families and staff, but I'm also responsible for scheduling and training other volunteers in this unit. The ability to lead a cohesive team, to ensure commitment from our volunteers through accountability measures, and to continue making the impact on families that helped me refine my leadership skills and general organizational competency. Our unit was recently awarded the hospital's Volunteer Excellence Award, which left me beaming with pride. With this experience, I've also learned that not all NICU stories have a happy ending, and that my own family was fortunate in this regard. The work I do here is meaningful, but also emotionally difficult. I have wrapped my arms around weeping mothers who had to say goodbye to a life's worth of hopes and dreams. I have seen cases with generally good outlooks take a devastating downturn. I have seen the face of true anguish and loss. I have learned that nothing is certain. Everything can change, for better and for worse. The strength I have seen in those families that go on, and in the doctors and nurses in the NICU, inspires me to contribute however I can to advancing change in a positive direction. To contribute substantially and meaningfully in such change, I must become a physician. Harvard Medical School Personal Statement Example number 3. In his landmark text, The Birth of the Clinic, Michel Foucault observed the ways in which medical doctors act as empowered and revered agents in modern societies, but also the ways in which the medical gaze can dehumanize patients, reducing them to mere bodies that are acted upon. Though published in 1963, his work continues to inspire physicians, philosophers, sociologists, and other scholars who seek to understand such power dynamics and bring empowered patients back to the center of medical care. Acknowledging this role of the doctor has left every project, every research goal, and indeed every step on my path to gaining my MD subject to additional analysis and reflection. It has helped me understand the medical world in new ways and inspired me to act as an advocate for chronically ill and often misunderstood patients. 7 years ago, my mother woke up one day with widespread pain in her body, relentless fatigue, and a multitude of other generalized symptoms. For the first few weeks, she brushed these off. Seeing her struggle just to do basic tasks like showering or making dinner was excruciating, but she assured me that this was just a passing flu or something like that. Weeks and months went by with no improvement. I finally convinced her to see a doctor. I thought that would be the end of this ordeal. She would get a diagnosis and treatment, and things would return to normal. After a battery of tests that all came back negative, however, we hit a wall. Over the following 2 years, she would see 5 different doctors, undergo more tests, blood draws, stress tests, even an MRI, which all came back negative. Yet her suffering continued. With no real treatment, she cut back her working hours and spent most of her time off work in bed. I had to step in to maintain the home, prepare meals for our family, her, my younger brother, and myself, and ensure bills were paid, all while working part-time and continuing my education. Finally, after insisting upon a referral, she was able to see a specialist, a rheumatologist, who diagnosed her with fibromyalgia. While we sighed with relief upon the diagnosis and related treatment, this was the beginning of yet another arduous struggle with the medical establishment. We quickly learned, upon returning to our family doctor, that because this disorder is not easily tested or treated, it is not always taken seriously. Patients are often told that it is all in their head or treated as if they are seeking narcotics. I witnessed both things happen to my mother as I'd started attending her doctor's appointments. All I could see was a woman who used to be heroic in my eyes, reduced now to a lifetime of very real pain and suffering. As I began researching fibromyalgia and frequenting support groups for those with this condition, a long history of dismissal, humiliation, and intense physical and mental anguish spread out in front of me. When I encountered Foucault's theories in my coursework during pre-med, it helped me articulate my mother's experiences and the experiences of many in the chronic illness community in new and trenchant ways. I could see the ways in which she'd been dehumanized and dismissed by some doctors, simply for trying to self-advocate and get the care she desperately needed. This experience led me to establish a new campus group for invisible disability awareness and advocacy, for which I currently act as founder and co-president. Together, we raise awareness on campus and in other pre-med student groups and volunteer our services on evenings and weekends, helping such patients with basic household duties, much as I've done for my mother. Because of this work, I've been invited to make several presentations and guest lectures in pre-med courses that touch on such issues, helping students connect what they're learning to the lived experiences of those with chronic illness. So many aspiring med students grasp the basic science, but demonstrating the connection between medical knowledge and the humanity of patients is critical in advancing truly patient-centered care. There's no doubt that medical doctors hold positions of prestige and power in our society. This is an earned distinction, of course, but one that requires a degree of humility in listening to one's patients and understanding each patient as an individual, rather than using stereotypes to lump certain patient groups together. When patients are not considered part of the healthcare team, a chasm can grow between patient and practitioner, a chasm which leads to additional harm and which negatively impacts patient outcomes. I want to become a doctor so that I can be part of a new generation of practitioners dedicated to individualized care. Though this may change once I'm in med school, I would currently like to pursue rheumatology so that I can continue my advocacy for patients with such conditions who are often subject to misunderstanding, stereotyping, and inadequate care rather than individual care geared toward the best possible quality of life. As conditions like fibromyalgia are not well understood, I want to learn about the most cutting-edge research into diagnosis and treatment for this and similar conditions, example chronic fatigue syndrome, so I can provide others the kind of care my mother sought and struggled to find. So hopefully you have a better idea of how you can create a winning personal statement for Harvard Medical School. This will wrap up another one of our videos, so please subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you have any questions that I didn't cover in today's video. Are you applying to Harvard Medical School? Do you need help with your personal statement? Let me know in the comments section. Finally, if you want us to help you get into medical school, click on the link either above or below this video to schedule your free initial consultation. Thanks for watching. See you next time.